Hello and welcome back. Today we are doing something of a review of the entire year. I first off want to start this by thanking everyone for sticking around for the entire year, those of you who have been around from the very beginning, as well as those of you who have been around just the last couple months. It has been a wild journey, and I have enjoyed every second of all of the tutorial series and the project in general, the YouTube channel as a whole, especially all of the interactions with all of the different people and all of the different dialogue and the ways I've been able to help some people and the ways some people have been able to help me. It has just been a wonderful growing experience. So I wanted to first of all thank everyone. Now, there may be some concern about burnout and things like that, and I would be lying if I didn't say that I have felt a little bit of anxiety when sitting down to program as of late. But my wife has picked up on that, and she went ahead and made the call and asked me to take off for the rest of the year until around the middle of January, and I decided that it would be best to go ahead and respect that request and just spend some time with my family. So there will be no more videos until the middle of January, at which point I will be revisiting the FPS horror series and hopefully getting that wrapped up. While I had intended to get it all done this year, it does not look feasible to do so. Now, that being said, I didn't want to leave you all empty-handed, so I figured I would go ahead and show off what I've been working on for the last month or so. A gentleman named Phil a little while back showed me what he had been working on, which was a clip mesh solution that allowed for moving around of the terrain and allowing the mesh to follow the player around using a little bit of shader wizardry to make the vertices snap properly using the UV textures. It was actually a very clever piece of code, and so I wanted to go ahead and make something that would kind of match that, but with the height maps. So what I ended up resulting in was something akin to a virtual texturing solution for the height maps, and that's what you see on screen here. And I'm gonna kind of go down what the current features are and where I intend to take it. This won't exactly be a full breakdown, nor will it be in any way a tutorial. I'll just be kind of going over all of the updates and where I'm gonna be heading in the future. So as you can see, we've got a full world here, and the worlds are more or less limitless in size. The only issue you start to have is precision at extremely far ranges, and that can be solved through a number of solutions that have been proposed in multiple different YouTube channels and various projects, mostly circling around using double precision or using a floating origin point. Now, the terrain uses something called a stamp-based method, and in a manner, the stamps don't really exist until they are rendered. So if you come near a mountain, then the mountain is now saved to the height map dynamically, and once you walk away, the height map just moves along with you. So if I say select this mountain, I can move it around, and in real time I can edit everything, and we could even have this editing be capable of being done in-game at runtime. So things like craters and dynamic terrain, and even networking that dynamic terrain is all viable and possible, much like in a game like Battlefield 5 or something like that. Now, a problem that has been notorious on projects like this is the ability to edit the terrain, so I went ahead and tackled that early. So we have some editing tools up here. If I just select some, I can go ahead and scale up the terrain, or if I hold down Alt, I can remove it, and if I hold down Shift, I can smooth that out. Then I also have several different options for setting terrain, so I can just set height, as well as a couple options for painting terrain, so I can go ahead and paint the splat maps. Say I wanted to paint everything blue right here. I can go ahead and paint over all of the different little bits. Now, the way all this works currently is that the splat maps are generated automatically, and then the drawing is overriding them. And of course, I also have the ability to erase drawings as well as erasing splat map painting. And on top of all of that, there's also a color map, which is used for the tinting at a distance. So if I just take like blue and paint all of the height map, you can see it now turns blue. Though in this case, the splat map, since it is auto-generated based off of colors, it goes ahead and sets the terrain as being sand right there, which is not ideal, but that's another problem for another day. That all being said, the end result is that we can go ahead and modify the terrain as we like, and all of this can happen in real time or even runtime. And then on top of all of that, we can have this terrain be right here and go 50 kilometers that direction and have just as much detail there as we do here. Now, all of this works fairly well and is fairly high performance, but we also have a couple other features beyond this. We have the ability to manipulate things like the ocean level in real time, as well as snow height and blend. So we can manipulate those things in real time, and they're accessible from global shader variables, so that way they can be accessed in tree shaders or what have you. Speaking of which, we also have collisions. As you can see right here, the collision is based off of a wandering height map collision style, and it just moves along with the player, and it works pretty much out of the box in any given situation. Now, we are working on some various problems with the collisions and the height map matching up. Phil has specifically been working almost entirely on the actual mesh of the terrain, and he's been working on getting more detail out of it and also making it line up with the collision slightly better. Due to the way he created the mesh in the past, there was a slight dissonance between it and the collision mesh, as you can see right here, where it pops up above the collision mesh in some places. This is something that he's been working to resolve while I've been working on all of the tools and the height map generation and the like. We also have a couple other things that are currently in the works, but very early days. Obviously, this water is very simple. It's just 2 height maps, but we do have some very simple caustics that are also brought over from this. During this time, I went ahead and implemented the shadow clouds, and those also work with the caustics, so they occlude the caustics. The water mesh and the water caustics are all work in progress. I want to get actual coastline simulation, and so for that, I'm going to need a little bit more of a complex mesh, and I believe Phil actually said that he might tackle that after he's done with the terrain mesh, so I'm not really going to worry about that. I'm just mostly worried about the tools to build out the terrain. Speaking of which, we actually have basic foliage, and this foliage is just based off of a given splat map. In this case, I believe it's the red color of the splat map, and obviously later on we're going to have a proper foliage mask and things like that, but I'm not really pleased with this, and this is still very early days on the foliage. I'll be blending between particles at a distance and a series of multi-mesh instance 3Ds up close, so that way we can have as many types of trees as we want, and then the particles will actually be based off of a sprite sheet that is baked at runtime or just before you start the game. Based off of the tooling here, you'll be able to select whatever trees you want and which layers they go on and what their densities are and stuff like that, and then the particle system will just handle that in the background and go ahead and throw the trees out there, and when you get close they'll be replaced with meshes from the multi-mesh instance 3D. Now, all of that being the case, this is all still very early days, and so it's not quite ready for prime time, and as a result I haven't released it yet, though rest assured when this is complete it will be released as an add-on and it will be free to everyone just like the clouds. Now, there was actually some discussion back and forth on whether I should include the clouds directly in the terrain, and I think I probably will. Some of the updates that I've been making on the clouds in order to get them to work properly with the terrain, like not rendering the clouds at the edges, that was a bug in the previous clouds version, has not actually been ported back to the standalone cloud system, and as a result the 2 versions have started to kind of drift apart. What I probably will do before I release the terrain is merge all of the changes to the clouds back into the original clouds add-on so that it still functions, but then going forward from that point I will just have one plugin that will be the terrain, and it will have the clouds, the water, and the terrain all in one. It'll all just kind of be a single button to get everything started on a world. But that all being said, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and holidays, even if you don't celebrate Christmas. Enjoy your time, and we'll see you all back here next year for the next tutorial.